What is up, fam? CJ Finn here, back with another episode of the Thrive on Life podcast. But today we are doing it not in my studio. We're at South by Southwest. And I just want to say shout out to Ibble App and my buddy Moby for giving me this opportunity. And also our guest today, Miss Kristin Weitzel. We are about running an hour and a half behind, so I'm just going to get right into this. But before we do that, I want to allow you to introduce yourself and tell people where they can hear your story or follow you at, because today we're just going to get right to the value for everybody here at South by Southwest.
Yeah, awesome. I'm Kristin Weitzel. You can follow me at Warrior Woman Mode, which is my business, warriorwomanmode.com. And on the Ibble app, I am Biohacker Bestie. We can see a ton of the content that's going to come out on ice baths and breathing and getting all crazy. So that's where you can find me and hear my story and all of that. But yeah, let's talk about the
Heck yeah. So today's topic of conversation is human optimization. I love everything that you put out on social media and everything that you do for the community on this topic. And it's something that I wanted to start with today because at South by Southwest, it's known for people working long hours, people flying in and partying and attending and connecting and networking. And that can take a toll on the human body. So I'd love if you just go into some tips and tricks for anybody that's either here working or is an attendee on how to keep themselves healthy and optimized during events, not just South by Southwest, but anything else that they are flying around to and networking at.
Yeah. So an important question. And my background before I got into the world of health optimization and coaching was executing events like this in the marketing world. So I'm super familiar with the behind the scenes thing, and attending events like this can be grueling in the most beautiful way, right? Where we get to connect and network and be with each other in person. But the optimization tips I have is like, the beautiful thing is like, we're all set up here with bottles on the table. And I think the first thing I want to talk about is just, hydrating, especially if you're working these events, we sort of forget. And also we have this notion that water, just keep drinking lots and lots of water, and just making sure that I always pack in my backpack or rucksack sodium, potassium, magnesium. So a mix of supplements that's electrolyte based, right? Or you can get little packets or powders or what have you, right? I'm like a big LMNT person, but I put it in my water and I keep my water bottle around. So I'm always hydrating at a cellular level, right? Make sure we have enough salt in our water. And then the other thing that always is how many cups of coffee are we going to drink to keep it going? And there's other ways I think to do over caffeination. Not that you can't have a cup of coffee, just you love it and you're riding the caffeine a little bit. Adding other kind of nootropics, having some theanine with your coffee to give you sort of focus and boost as well as energy without having to crash off of it. And then I'm a big molecular hydrogen fan. So it gives you a lot of energy. It's the smallest molecule that exists. It helps boost cellular health and function. So I put a lot of different things into the liquids that I'm drinking around the day when I'm behind the scenes or at the conference.
Yeah, and especially on a day like today where I think yesterday was 70 degrees and then today is in the mid 40s and it's cold, people will tend to forget to drink more water because you just are not necessarily feeling thirsty. You're a little bit cold and it's something that we can easily forget. So I love how you touched on that, but you just mentioned molecular hydrogen. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so molecular hydrogen, when you take Hydrotab is what I usually take. It's like a non-chelated magnesium. The magnesium is made in a way it's a rabbit hole of magnesium, 23 different kinds of magnesium. It's the thing that we're most deficient in. But a magnesium tablet, when you put it in water, it's not about the magnesium. It off-gases these bubbles that are molecular hydrogen. They're doing more and more research on this about energy efficiency, about creating energy efficiency in the cells. It's also really great for jet lag and hangovers because we all know that people are at South by Southwest and they're having cocktails, right? They're having a beer with a friend, etc., networking. So taking molecular hydrogen throughout the course of the day is really great to be preventative in the sense of you're hydrating, you're creating energy, and you're preventing a bit of that hangover for the next day, in advance. And that's what we want to do, right? It's get our bodies to be able to be preventing the hangover the next day if we're going to indulge in a cocktail or two. It is the smallest molecule, lots of research around it, and all of the world of quarantine and stuff that there's been, people have been using sort of injectable, doctors have been using it more IV driven molecular hydrogen and whatnot. So definitely a rabbit hole. If people want to learn more about it, I always say go to the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. There's tons of research there about it, and it's fascinating because it's not super well known yet, and but it's coming. You can feel it.
Super interesting. I'm
And
looking.
we put it in the water. It's like Alka-Seltzer, it's just so weird, but it bubbles, and then it takes about 30 to 60 seconds to dissolve, and then you drink the water. But what you're wanting to get is the gas, the bubbles.
Okay.
So you want to drink it in like 30 seconds, right? It's like almost like a small glass that you shoot, so that you're getting the molecular hydrogen in your system. And they say it can get through the stomach lining and get into your body and all of that.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to look into that. But
I'm not sure. Bottles on me or something crazy, but yeah.
Let's be realistic. A lot of the people here aren't just coming to learn; they are coming to have a good time.
Yeah.
And the percentage of people probably showing up to these events hungover at some capacity is relatively, I would say, probably high. So what do you do if you are that person and you wake up and you're just like, oh, I'm not really feeling great today? What does that person do? How do they kind of give themselves a better chance to have a good day? What are some tips in that area?
Yeah. I think that, it's really interesting. I feel like when I was younger, I was always like, hair of the dog that bit you, have a little more.
Yeah, Bloody Mary.
But I think that that's like not the jam. It's like, get yourself going, get fluid in you in the morning right away. If you can't like pop over to your favorite IV place, nowadays that becomes more prevalent. It's like, go to MSW Lounge.
Yeah.
But if you can't pop over there, then it's like, get fluids in your system. And like what I put in my water besides electrolytes is amino acids. So like an essential amino acid, it's going to help you fuel yourself for the day. And I would do my very best to stay like a little off the sugar. So if you're going to like head out into the world and keep drinking the next day and networking and having a great time, all cool. But maybe like keep it with like your favorite alcohol, mezcal on the rocks, or a splash of soda and lime, something that's just like a less sweetened mixer to add into that game, right? Keeping yourself like some protein, some aminos, just fueling the system the right way the next day, and then layering on whatever cocktailing or beer, whatever you're going to do on top.
Yeah, I guess the issue becomes then like, we were just walking through the tent over there. It's just all the different foods and drinks that you're consuming throughout the day, knowing what is in them and what is not in them. That has always been a struggle of mine throughout events, is just like understanding what am I actually intaking here. And for somebody that's hungover, like you will definitely want to be conscious, like Kristin is saying, of like what it is that you're putting into your body. You did mention IVs and MSW Lounge there, but I know that you're super into breath work and the fact that that can help not just the physical side, but the mental side. So let's dive more into, we've started off this conversation a lot of like, what is it that we could ingest and help us physically be optimal? But if we're trying to prepare for a long weekend like South by Southwest, we'll have you go through, what are some areas where we can help our mental health, like I'm wearing the shirt today. What would you recommend for people out there to prepare themselves mentally for everything that's going on?
Yeah, for sure. The thing that I think is cool about breath work, it's like this untapped piece that people always think, well, I'm breathing right now, so why do I need to breathe differently or better? Or how can I utilize my breath any differently than I already am? So sort of this like low hanging fruit, and we get a chance to, we figured it out. Like in the science behind breath is that we can increase our focus by sitting and breathing nasally. That's the first thing I always recommend to people, is like, it's just growing an awareness around, hey, I'm sitting in this space, I'm feeling a little agitated or a little tired. How can I oxygenate my tissues better? And like, that sounds like woo-woo crazy science, but it's not about oxygenating your tissues. Then you're not going to be focused. You're not going to have the energy that you need. So when we breathe through our nose, we're actually creating a systemic response that oxygen can get into our cells and our brain and our body better. And, that's another rabbit hole I like to talk about, but it's important to know that that's like step one. And then step two is like, do you have a moment to like put your phone down and a pause between the people that you're chatting with, and you're super sympathetic and really excited to connect, but like, do you have a moment you can sit for like 3 to 5 minutes and just do some like calm nasal breathing, where you're like, I always talk about 2x breathing because it's easy. It's like, whenever I breathe in and a count in my head, like a count of 4 in, and then I can exhale for a count of 8. And that's just giving me a little bit of a parasympathetic calming. But it's also going to bring a little bit more focus and awareness to my state, because I'm getting more oxygen in my system.
What is the difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic? So those that are listening can.
Question. Yeah, because sympathetic always sounds like that should be like the chill out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, I'm sympathetic and I'm all chill and it's fine. But it's actually the opposite. So sympathetic is when our nervous system state is heightened when we're in fight or flight. Sometimes people might say we're so sympathetic that we're in this freeze mode, right? Where people have like some big shock happen in their life. And then parasympathetic is when we are calm, we are rest, digest, socialize, and have sex. All of those things are happening here. So that's
Yeah.
and so how do we get ourselves in a space where we're breathing more easily and we're in a calmer state so that we can connect with people? Because like this is the other thing, right? Ibble is this like super rad app and it's great and we want to be on our phones so much, but this is this dopamine hit we continue to get. And so how can we actually just like put our phone down for a little bit and connect with people and breathe in a way that I can hear what you're saying and actively listen to you? Because if this isn't a space for like technology and innovation and conversation and finding investors and being a big badass entrepreneur, then there's no other space for it, right? You want to be turned on and tuned in. And I think that's the way you can use breathing. And it's like, I want to see someone sitting in the corner of like some booth or some speaking engagement, just be like having a moment, closing their eyes, taking some breaths, because that's someone who is actively pursuing greatness, right? They're breathing well and they're putting themselves out into the world right after that breathwork moment to connect with other people.
And the best part about it is it's free. Like
It's totally
we breathe
free. Yeah.
all the time.
I always think that's why people forget to do good breathing. It's like, well, it's just free. I can do it anytime. So do I have to do it right now? I'll save it for later.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we subconsciously do it all the time, and we don't even realize how much of a blessing it is that if we just slow down and do some breath work and take a deep breath, it'll allow us to be patient when we're running an hour and a half behind, right? But
Totally.
I've seen you wear special glasses before, and for those that are at South by or at other events, we got our buddy Arno helping us out, looking at the screen right now, and I'm assuming he'll be looking at screens for the next 2 to 3 days nonstop. When we get free moments, people tend to pick up their phone or tend to pick up their laptop and get on the screen. Our eyes, we can optimize how we're bringing in light through our eyes, and that can affect how we're feeling throughout the day. So give me a little bit of a rundown of what are those special glasses that you're wearing, and where could people find those, and why should they be looking into what they're wearing on their eyes when they're looking at screens?
Yeah, for sure. And this is like a crazy, interesting conversation, because what's happening actually right now that's interesting to me is as we have this conversation, I always think about, am I going to be wearing blue blockers? Blue blockers is what we call them loosely, right? To be able to like adjust the type of lighting that's getting into my like ocular cavity and triggering my brain, because light comes in through the eyes. And this is true even for blind people. As long as you have eyeballs, the light is coming through your eyes, and your eyes are triggering everything to happen in your brain around circadian rhythm, around what time of day it is, around hunger response, things like that are happening. And so how do we, utilize glasses that are going to sort of color the lights or refract light that we don't want? But what's interesting about what's happening right now as we sit in this booth is it's kind of overcast outside. It's midday. I, as a biohacker, I always like to get great sleep. But last night I had a massive client project. I was up till 1:30. So I know in my body that with it being overcast, it being midday, and us sitting here, that like people may or may not be able to see, but there's some big light coming at us, right? This blue light in our face is just going to mimic daylight. And so I almost feel like, oh, this is actually good for me, because it's like turning my brain on to know this is the middle of the day, and even being on and not a lot of sleep, I may not need glasses in this moment. But during the rest of the day, we have things on our phone that color the screen. We have things on our computer, especially if we're doing a lot of work on a laptop. There are lighter colored blue blocking glasses that just look clear. And as the day begins to get later and later, there are different glass colors you can put on. So one is more of like an amber shade. And the ones that I will wear like an hour before bed only are deep red. And that's blocking all the blue light, all the junk light out completely. And everything in my house looks red, and I have red light bulbs and all that ridiculousness. But that is helping trigger my brain to understand nighttime is here. And so it's time to unwind, all the way from the amber glasses being worn from sunset to triggering my brain with those red glasses, which are big blue blockers, which I wear, and that helps me sleep. Because the better our circadian rhythm is aligned with what's happening in the natural cycle of the planet, the better our health will be optimized, the better we'll sleep, the better we set ourselves up. No longer can you be like staring at your phone for 2.5 hours before you go to bed and say, I'm really not getting good sleep and I don't know why, right? We have these simple tools to fix that issue. And if people don't have access, the other thing that's free is get up in the morning before 9 a.m., get 10 minutes of sunrise. You don't have to be on a beautiful beach, although that's awesome.
Yeah.
But just get sunlight into your eyes before 9 a.m. for like 10 minutes and not through a window, just outside. And that will help set both your serotonin and your set up your day to let your body and your brain know, oh, the sun is up. I need to be awake. How your hunger functions, how your meal timing happens, how your sleep is set up. It's like your best night of sleep starts with the first moments in the morning. So getting sunlight there. And then sunset is the last piece of that, which is you don't have to put on blue blockers to set your rhythms. You can turn the lights down in your house or light candles or whatever when sun sets, and you can get out and look at the sunset and be like, cool, strain. I know that the night is coming. And so it's going to settle your body into that parasympathetic state we talked about.
And the cool thing about that is you'll be able to multitask and do your breath work at the same time. So get 10 minutes of sun in the morning, do your breath work. And then at night when you're looking at the sunset and you're calming yourself down,
Yeah.
do some of that breath work that Kristin was talking about. But the next thing I want to jump into is something that you've actually turned me on to recently with the Flex Beam. It's red light therapy. And for me, I am an athlete and struggle with all the time, just different aches and pains and things like that. Now, people that are coming to the festival are going to be standing, moving, and potentially walking a lot more than they might be used to. And this could create some aches and pains throughout the course of the day, at night. Tell us a little bit about how red light therapy and the different products in that spectrum would be advantageous to people that are sitting in awkward positions, walking a lot more than they usually are. What is the advantage of red light?
Yeah. Red light. You know, there's so much a lot of times people will say to me, but it's like red light and it's shining on me and I don't understand how it's working. And I want to reiterate, first and foremost, there's thousands of pieces of research and literature that we've known about, and we've known about the power of wavelengths of light since when we were wheeling patients out early, 40s and 50s out of the hospitals for a certain period of time to help them heal. And they were healing faster because we were getting them sunlight, like morning sun or sunset sunlight. But that became obviously, big pharma came in and became really like a workload to be able to wheel all the patients out and in and things like that. So they stopped doing that. And, that's unfortunate. And we've really reharnessed sort of the power of wavelengths of light, not just by getting out in the sun more, but also by using red light devices. And they have become, if we don't think that they're mainstream yet, like they're mainstream. So there's panels and there's, smaller things for your skin, and there's intravaginal devices, and there's stuff you can put on your testicles. Like there's every kind of red light in the world to boost every kind of function. But the basic science behind it is that our cells are made up of electrons. Our body is like a battery, and we can charge it with certain wavelengths of red light in that spectrum. And different wavelengths of light affect different parts of our body. So knowing that we have a reputable brand that we're utilizing is important. It can't just be like a $1.99 painted red light bulb that someone's like, this will work. It needs to be specific with the diodes of light. And then the other cool part, the Flex Beam specifically, I love because there aren't any other devices that I know of in the red light world that you can charge and then just take with you. Like I could fit it in my backpack. I could have it around me at South by Southwest if I was sitting at night. And there's enough tech heads here, so it wouldn't feel like, oh, biohacking nerd. I'd be like, okay, cool. What's that? It sort of looks like a bullet strap or something. Like he looks all badass in that way. So for sleep, I use it a lot for recovery, and then for potentiation for all the athletes out there like you, I will do some potentiation work where I will strap it on my body, typically my shoulders because I've had injuries in the past, before I work out upper body to potentiate the cellular function and potentiate the workout.
Yeah, I've noticed immediately, so I've been using it for a week now, the ability to transport it is awesome. And for somebody like me, I have back issues and hips, and any athlete that's probably, especially males, that's where you're going to see a lot of issues just because we're sitting throughout the day so much. And I've noticed an improvement almost within days just from doing it 2 or 3 times a day. So it's something that I can definitely recommend for those other people out there. But I'd love to get more into the conversation of okay, we've been using the tips and tricks that you've been telling us and we're feeling great. throughout
Stacking all the hats.
South
We're
by
like,
Southwest.
sunlight,
Everything is
sunset,
great.
light, glasses,
Yeah, it's
everything.
all great.
Trilbics.
We get through. What should the recovery practices be that people take with themselves? Because I feel like a lot of people, when we are preparing for something, we do a little bit extra, but then we let those habits kind of fall through the wayside once we get home or we get back into our normal routine. So there's a lot we're throwing at you: hydration, red light, glasses, better sleep, technology. For the person that doesn't want to be overwhelmed, like they go back to wherever they're from after South by Southwest, what are the biggest habits that they can instill within their lifestyle to start making their way towards just living a healthier and happier life?
Yeah, and this is the thing. This is like the key question, right? This is the pinnacle question: is how do I, create slow, simple consistencies I weave into my life? Like I talk about a lot as like I'm scaffolding. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to layer in the flex beam and see how that I can navigate that, and reminding myself, plugging and charging it once a week, getting it in my bag, getting it in my car until it becomes part of my habit and my routine. Because then I know that there's one extra layer in there. And so picking the things that you want to start with, right? Not taking them all at once. If I'm saying to someone, what's the very best thing that they can change today? The answer is always going to be breath. Like always, even if you've optimized nasal breathing 90% of your day, if you're an athlete in any capacity, learning how to breathe better, there's specific protocols to use when you're breathing and lifting and all of that, we can all functionally learn how to breathe better and get better breathing biomechanics so that we can do everything from like lose weight faster to heal our body faster. And recovery is a very big piece of that. So breathing is always my number one thing. And secondarily, sleep, right? We don't have to hopefully talk too much about getting good sleep, but sleep is the time your body gets a chance to recover. And then I like to say, like, the third thing I would do is like pick something that feels like a cool innovation to you and try that thing out, right? If it's in your budget and it makes sense, and do your research or ask people like CJ or myself, hey, what brands do you recommend? Because I feel like we're very aligned with brands that are sourcing things well, are reputable, and we're not like selling out. People aren't just saying, talk about my brand, I'll pay all this money. It's not about that. It's about, we really want quality brands for people. So getting a quality brand of something that feels cool to you, like something that's like, oh, this is, I'm a little passionate about this, because when we're passionate, we keep that stuff in our lives, right? We keep that in our day to day. And again, it's like building routine. So it's like at any given time, at this point in my scaffolding of my life, of my health, of the way I want to thrive, I have a backpack and it's got a few things in it. It's always going to have a protein, grass-fed beef static. It's always going to have like some molecular hydrogen and a couple supplements. I'm going to have my blue blockers in there. I probably will have my flex beam if I'm like on the go for a full day. And I always know that I can do it light and easy by just layering in breath work or meditation or anything of that nature. So it's like, I don't want people just like, I know that you live by this. It's like, if you layer all the things on at once, it ain't going to stick. So let's pick the things that are our baseline good fitness pieces, and then something that's really cool. Cause we all like to have the one thing in our bag that's like, look at this cool new toy, then you can share it with people, or you can, lend it out or drop a pill in their water, safely and legally, and then keep people going.
I think it comes down to just like foundations and then keeping things simple. So like with breath and sleep, like if you don't know how to manage your breath and you don't know how to manage your sleep, everything else won't matter.
Totally.
Like red light's not going to save you if you're only sleeping 3 hours a night and you're not familiar with what will improve your deep sleep or improve your REM. And then if you can't control your breathing and you're constantly having anxiety attacks or panic attacks, like the blue blockers on your eyes aren't really going to do much for you. So start with those two things. I love that you stated that. But last question I have here is, you mentioned a little bit of like the innovative side. There's all these new innovations and technologies coming out. What is exciting to you going into 2022 in terms of the health optimization space?
There's so much stuff coming out right now. There's a lot of different things that are exciting to me right now. I'm always going to want to talk about cold and cold exposure and ice baths and all of that. That's really, that's a big piece of my life and my work. The big thing from a tech standpoint that isn't even new. I just think people need to be getting, if you're not investing in a wearable, you're not investing in the future of your health.
Yes.
And, I have two wearables on today. I have like a bio strap and an Oura ring, but it's like you're wearing a Whoop. There's a lot of options on the market, and it's just about find one thing and compare apples to apples. If you compare your Whoop score numbers to like your score on something else on your Oura ring, right, there's differences. So you start with one and compare apples to apples and innovate the way that you are sleeping and checking your REM score. And all of these things will tell you how many breaths you're taking in a minute.
Right.
And I think that is the most important thing to translate to people is get a wearable device that really suits your lifestyle and suits everything that you're doing. Yeah, like that's the piece. There's tons of tech that's coming out, and I've been doing what's the one quick thing I will say is I've been doing a protocol on an adaptive resistance exercise machine. And for me, that's like, I've started incorporating it in the work I'm doing with a professional athlete. And it's just slowly but surely, I'm watching it really game change and hyper innovate the fitness industry. And that can feel a little like scary to those of us. You and I also love to get on a barbell and a dumbbell all the time. So how that changes the game is really, I'm leaning hard into that kind of tech.
Yeah, spend a minute here going into what that machine is, because that is local to Austin and I would love to shout them out.
Yeah, for sure. So the machine is called ARX. ARXfit.com is their website. It's adaptive resistance exercise. So the X stands for exercise. And it is, there's a number of different ways to use it, but the banging, amazing innovation is that it really focuses on giving you 100% range of motion on the eccentric load. So when if you talk about it in the fitness world, it's like on negatives, and eccentrically loaded work or negatives on the one side of the lift is where we actually do the most damage. And by damage, I mean minimum effective dose of strain on the muscle so that it can repair and become even stronger. And so we only get about 30% or so of that range in gym training, which is awesome, right? That's like easily accessible. We can get barbells, dumbbells, we can work with chains, what have you, and get as crazy as we can, but we're still missing range of motion because our body just, based on gravity and based on our capability to lift a weight, you have to lift it in order to lower it. And so this machine takes that guesswork out of it, and it's tracking like 15 times a second. It's checking in on how much force production you have. And at that, every single moment, every single second that's happening, it's pushing back that force and then some. And so it's like, they would say robots over dumbbells are becoming more efficient, and it is highly effective. It's also, you never beat the machine. Like you never beat the machine. It just kicks your ass.
I tried it at the Howdy Health Fest, and it was the best 12-minute workout that I've ever had. And something that you can't replicate. It's just like, so I did like a bench press, a squat, and then, bench press, leg press, and back row.
Yeah.
And especially for like the bench press, it feels like literally a car is being dropped on you and you're trying to hold from like getting crushed by this car, and you do it. I think they can choose the amount of reps that you do, but within 12 minutes I was toasted.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about this is you can see your improvements. And I'm huge in the metrics. So like you were talking earlier for sleep, get the Whoop, the Oura Ring, BioStrap, learn what's best for you. But with workouts, it's very hard to do that based on our judgment, because when we go in, and you mentioned dumbbells, like some days I slept well, some days I didn't sleep well, some days I'm well fed, some days I'm not. So the amount of strength I have difference each day is just based on how I feel. Rather, the ARX is going to show you specifically, like if you keep going there week over week, month over month, how your strength has improved, and it gives you that data in live time analysis. So when you're on the machine, you actually see how strong or not strong you are in that very moment. So I highly recommend, if you're local to Austin, go check them out. And if you're at South by Southwest and you want a 12-minute workout,
they're in the wellness center tomorrow.
They are in the wellness center this weekend, so go check them out. By the time people hear this after the fact, that won't be the case.
Well, that's okay,
but you can go check it out.
This other amazing thing that you talking about this is awesome to hear, because when you're training, you get to look on the screen and say, okay, cool, I'm CJ in this male body. I was born in this male body, and I look on the screen and I can see how I slept and how strong it is, my force output. And when I look at the screen, I see some of the same stuff, but then I also can see, based on the month where I am in my cycle, like a lot of what I'm doing around women, and this is why I'm doing the protocol, like where I am in my cycle, where I have the most force production, where I don't, and when I need to like heavy up and do, like I'm going in on the 10-day estrogen spike, and I'm like slow, strong, heavy, 2 or 3 sessions in that 10-day period of time, which almost would be too much but then I'm like lowering the frequency of around the rest of the month for me. So it's like super cool to hear a dude talk about it, a man who's like, hey, I'm in here and I notice my differences. And then it's just like a reminder to women that sometimes, and men too, sometimes we show up and our sleep or our fuel is not optimal, and that's okay. Still get the workout in. We still, are getting the resistance training in. And then maybe the next time we got a better shot at it, or maybe it's just a different time of that time of month for me, and I can actually like put more power in. So yeah, it's like
That's
little steps, man, little steps.
If we're going back to the innovation, that's really what I'm excited for, is because I am married and seeing the innovation in the women's health space and noticing that like it is way different than males. And there's a huge conversation happening here in 2022. And honestly, I'd love our next podcast to be in that area, but we have hit our mark. And I just want to say thank you again to the Ibble app, Moby, Arno here, for helping us out with the technology and the video. And then of course, last but not least, Miss Kristin Weitzel for being on the podcast today. Is there anything else that you would love to say to the audience before we wrap up?
No, I just want to remind them to go to the Thrive on Life podcast and keep listening and leave a 5-star review, because this guy's crushing it. You're going to see nothing but a lot more of him in the future. And then what's your handle on the Ibble app again?
CJ Finley.
See? So like follow him everywhere, and come check me out on Warrior Woman Mode. And just thanks for being with us.
It's awesome. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in. This is CJ Finley with the Thrive on Life podcast. Thrive on, y'all.